They say when a baby is born, so is a mother. But while you are there to help your baby grow into the person he or she is meant to be, who is there to help you? Many women feel lost and alone when they become mothers, wondering, who am I now? Sometimes it feels like the transformation from woman to mother is as radical as a caterpillar's transformation into a butterfly. Did you know that inside the chrysalis, the caterpillar literally turns into goop before it rearranges itself into a butterfly? This podcast is about the goop, what soul transformation looks like as you transition from being a woman to a mom. Your baby's growth matters, but yours does too. You're not alone. I'm your host, Brittany Meng. Welcome to the Motherhood Metamorphosis.
I'm so glad you are joining me today for this special solo episode. I'm usually doing interviews with amazing guests, but I also wanted to have this time to share my own story with you and help you as you navigate your own growth and metamorphosis in your motherhood. Throughout the 2021 podcast interviews, I kept noticing a theme. Across the various topics, the amazing women I spoke to kept coming back to the idea of trusting your intuition as a mom. Trust your gut, make your voice louder, lean on your intuition. And I echoed this mantra throughout our conversations as a solid takeaway for new moms and experienced moms too. I mean, I still need this advice for myself. But I got to thinking, as a new mom, I had no clue what it meant to trust my gut. How do I make my own voice stronger in my head? How do I learn to trust my intuition? What are some truths I could lean on that will help me develop strength, confidence, and inner peace as a mother? So in this episode, I want to dig deep into what it means to develop your intuition as a mom, because this seems to be foundational to feeling that confidence that we all want in our motherhood journeys and to stepping more fully into what it means to be a mom and be a woman and show up in our own lives. I have 5 principles that I'd like to talk about today in ways that you can strengthen your intuition in your life. Reflect, stand in your own authority, be brave, embrace discomfort, and choose yourself. I have some stories that I'd like to share from my own motherhood journey that emphasize some of these points. And there are ways that I did trust my intuition and ways that I didn't, and what the outcome were for each of those stories. So to start with, we're going to go way back to the beginning. I had been a mom for 5 weeks, and my kids had been home for 2 of those weeks because they were in the NICU. To start out, my parents were visiting along with one of my mom's old friends. So I had 2 older women visiting that day, and my son Ben was just crying a lot. And he normally was a pretty chill little baby, even though he was just teeny tiny, barely over 5 pounds. NICU baby, and he just seemed not like himself. He was crying and nobody seemed to be able to soothe him. And my mom and her friend, who were both mothers themselves, assured me, hey, sometimes babies do this. Sometimes babies cry. And me being a mom for all of 5 weeks was like, okay. But I just felt in my gut that something was wrong. But I felt scared to act upon that because I wanted to trust that they were giving me good advice. And they actually told me to go for a drive and get out of the house because they could see I was getting distressed by Ben crying so much. So I did, and it didn't help at all. Every song on the radio was making me cry, and I just needed to get back home. So I got back home and he was still crying. And I thought, no, I need to call the doctor. Something is wrong. So I went in first and I changed his diaper, and I noticed that in his private region, something was not right. And it turned out, after I called the doctor and they told me to bring him in, that he had a testicular hernia. So we ended up taking him to an hour away to a children's hospital, and he had surgery the next day as a 5-week-old baby. So that, in that instance, I think back and look at that and I'm like, wow, my intuition was spot on. And so that brings me to my first point, that in order to develop and strengthen our intuition, we need to reflect on when our intuition served us well and to allow those experiences to become a foundation that you can trust. So at that time, I felt gratified that I had made that decision. My memory of that time was hiding in my bedroom while all my mom and her friend and my dad were in the living room and making this very quiet phone call to the pediatrician, because somehow I felt like I had to hide the fact that I was going against the advice that they gave me. But in retrospect, I know that I was doing the right thing for my son because I was trusting my gut. I didn't know I was acting upon my intuition in that moment. It took me a lot longer to develop my intuition after this incident, though I do see this situation as being foundational to coming into my own as a mother and learning to trust that, hey, when I have that feeling that something's wrong, I need to trust it. But this comes me to my second story. And the second point is stand in your own authority. You are the authority when it comes to your child's well-being. Stop giving this role to other people. I did not do this very well at all as my twins grew up. I noticed that I kept asking for the opinions of other people when I had a little niggling that maybe something wasn't quite right. I also was a champion Googler and did those searches often of, does my child have autism? Signs of autism, signs of ADHD. Does my child have a learning disability? And even though I would read these articles and I would recognize some of these challenges in my own kids, I kept thinking, okay, if the pediatrician says something, then I'll speak up. If the preschool teacher says something, then I'll speak up. If the Sunday school teacher says something, then I'll speak up. And I kept waiting for these people that I saw as authority figures or knew kids better than I did or were more experienced to give me permission to seek help for my sons. And I see this as denying the intuition that I knew was in my heart for a long time, that there were other things going on with my kids that I really was too scared to pursue. So it wasn't until my son was 7 years old that we started pursuing a diagnosis for his learning disabilities, and eventually we got an autism diagnosis and then ADHD. So it took a really long time. These diagnosis processes can take years even. And looking back, I really wish that I had pursued my gut instinct a lot sooner instead of passing that authority on to someone else. I realized that I was just scared and I was letting that fear override my intuition. But you are the authority on your child. You are that child's caregiver. You are the one who grew that child inside your body. You know his heartbeat. You know her body. You know her mind. You are the authority on your child. So I would encourage you, if you are doubting yourself, doubting what you may be feeling about what's going on with your child, to stop giving that authority to other people and realize that you are the authority. You are the number one authority on your child. And a way to honor that intuition is to invite people under the umbrella of your authority instead of trying to step into their circle. Stand in your own authority. That's principle number 2. Number 3 is be brave. Trusting your intuition is an act of bravery. This next story is also a situation where I did not honor my intuition, and it kind of had some significant consequences. My husband was about to be deployed. We were living in England and I had 5 kids. This is just a couple years ago. And I wanted to have somebody come and help me while he was gone for 6 months. I had a friend come for about 6 weeks when he had been gone over the previous summer, and her help was indispensable. It just gave me so much peace. She was wonderful with the kids, and I really wanted to have that experience again. Unfortunately, she was not available to come again to help me out during those 6 months. So I started the process of trying to hire an au pair or a nanny from the States to come over to England to help me. It was challenging. I did interviews, and I leaned on experiences from my past where I had hired babysitters for my kids when I was working. And in those instances, I really did rely on my gut. Like, what was my gut response to these babysitters? How did I see they interacted with the kids? It was a little harder doing it virtually because I wasn't able to get a significant feel for how the interactions with the kids would go when I met this particular person. I initially offered the position to a girl that I really liked, and she ended up backing out. So that was tough. So I was left with 2 other choices, and I offered it to the nanny that was older because I thought she would have more experience and be a little more mature. But in the few months between when I hired her and when she came to work for us, I had some interactions with her where I felt annoyed. These interactions continued to annoy me, and I started to feel doubt this nanny position was going to be a good fit for our family. However, the deployment date was coming closer and coming closer, and I thought, I don't have time to hire anybody else. It's going to be okay. It's just because we've been interacting via chat and we're not in person. Maybe I'll like her better when we do meet in person. And so I kept trying to soothe myself and say it was going to be okay, where my gut was saying this is not going to be a good fit. You're already annoyed and you haven't even met her. I just pushed those voices aside and didn't listen. So when she did come, my instincts were correct. Our personalities did not mesh up. Our interactions reflected somebody who had a lot of growth to do and wasn't ready to be in a position like this. And so now I had to live with the consequences of not listening to my intuition on that. Whereas if I had just told her before she even came, hey, I don't think this is going to work out, I think that it would have been really hard, but I could have hired somebody else. However, that was not the case. So my third point for strengthening your intuition is being brave. Trusting your intuition being an act of bravery. And I wish that I had been more brave. I wish I would have honored my inner self more, because it turned out that I did have to ask her to leave because it was not working out, and that was really tough. It was tough for me, it was tough for her. It made for an uncomfortable living situation. And so I wish I would have honored my intuition at the beginning instead of stepping into a situation that got really messy. This leads me to my fourth point in embracing discomfort. Regret is harder to live with than the momentary discomfort of standing firm in your intuition. So that really bleeds into the previous story about hiring somebody that I ultimately knew wasn't going to be the right person. That regret was hard to live with. When I knew that it was not going to be a good situation for her to stay, I stepped up and I said, hey, I think that I'm going to send you home. And I very gently told her this and helped her on her way to be able to get home. And that brought me peace, and I was honoring my intuition in that. Another story that comes to mind when I think of this point is when we moved back to the States this past fall. I was looking into a preschool for my daughter, Grace. And she was 2 years old. I was just looking for something that would give her some social interaction, something to do, something that would be fun for her. And I found a preschool. I was super excited about it, and we went to the open house. And at the open house, I was talking to the teacher, and she just didn't seem like she had a lot of experience. I always have this litmus test when I hire babysitters or when I meet teachers for my little ones, that I want to see them interact with my child. And she didn't do that, and I thought, this may not seem like the right fit. And their schedule seemed like it wasn't going to be super fun. And when I got back from the preschool open house, I thought, I didn't really like that. I don't think I want her to go to that preschool. And that's annoying because I really wanted her to be in this program, and we moved at such a time where there weren't a lot of openings at other preschools around town. So I thought about it for a few days, and I eventually wrote an email and said, hey, I don't think we're going to do this, because I didn't want to have a repeat from the past. I had learned my lesson about trusting my gut, or I was more completely learning the lesson about learning to trust my gut. So I ended up not sending her to that preschool. Well, fast forward a month or two, and we were at a library story time, and I met another mom who had a son about the same age as Grace, and she was saying, yeah, I just pulled him out of preschool. It just wasn't a good program. And I was like, oh yeah, I was going to sign my daughter up for this program, and we ended up not doing it. And she's like, was it this one? And I said yes. And she's like, oh, that was the one I just pulled him out of. It was not a good program. They weren't organized or experienced, and I wasn't happy with it at all. And she said, I had a feeling when we went to the open house that it wasn't going to be good, but I was like, no, it'll be fine. And then she ended up putting him in the program, and it wasn't good at all, and had to pull him out. So I was like, wow, I'm really glad that I did listen to my gut, and I was sorry that she had that experience. So realize that if there's discomfort of withdrawing your child from a program, or breaking up with a babysitter, or whatever the momentary discomfort is, it's better to live with that discomfort than to have regret about a decision and realize, oh, I put myself or my child or whatever in a situation that just wasn't the best for them or for you. So embrace discomfort. It's better than living with regret. Finally, we come to number 5, which is choose yourself. Choose your well-being or your child's well-being over accommodating the needs and wants of others. This last story comes from some relatives who wanted to come visit me over the holidays recently. And when I thought about them coming to visit, I was initially okay with it. But as the weeks went by and I hadn't heard from them about their plans, I started to doubt whether or not the visit would be a good experience, or whether I really wanted them to come visit or not. Then my son started having some problems at school, and my other son started to have significant sleeping issues, and I realized that this impending visit was on my mind a lot and was starting to bring me a lot of stress, just the thought of these relatives coming to visit. And so I thought, I haven't heard from them, I haven't heard about their plans, but I'm just going to message and say, let's plan for a visit for another time. This was not an easy message to write, and it was really uncomfortable, but I tried to be as kind and upfront as possible and say, hey, we're having some struggles. It's a stressful time right now. I think that it'd be best if you didn't visit over Christmas. So in choosing myself and my own mental health in this situation, I was honoring what was going to be best for me over accommodating the needs or the wants of others. And I think in this way, I was, in saying yes to that intuition, where I knew that I couldn't really accommodate guests right now and remain stress-free, that I was doing my best to honor my intuition and stand firm in who I was and what I wanted. So I think a lot of times when you have that feeling in your gut of, I don't want this, or I don't know how I feel about this, or something's off, then pay attention to that, because your intuition is trying to tell you something important about who you are and what you need and what you want. And it's not easy to develop that, but realizing that when you honor your intuition rather than deny your intuition, you are strengthening your inner self, you are standing firm in who you are, and you are helping develop not only your own needs and desires as a mother and as a woman, but you are also showing your children what it means to be a strong woman, what it means to honor your mental health, what it means to make good choices in the world, how to trust people. and how to trust yourself, most importantly. So I hope that these 5 principles: reflect, stand in your authority, be brave, embrace discomfort, and choose yourself, can give you some good food for thought as you develop your own intuition in your motherhood story. And I know that I'm continuing to learn this. I still mess up. I still lean too far into fear of what people will think or say, or fear of I don't have enough time, or I'm running out of options. There's always another option. There's always another way. And honoring your intuition is the best way to find that next solution, because that's what's going to bring you peace. So honor your peace, honor your intuition, stand up for yourself, and show your children the way. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope this encouraged you. Please leave me a comment on the Facebook page, the Motherhood Metamorphosis podcast. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks, everyone. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to this channel so you never miss an episode. Next, tell your friends. Podcasts are a slow growth type of social media, so promo works best when it's from person to person. If you know another mom who's in the goop right now, send her a text of encouragement and the link to the episode that is speaking to your heart right now. If you have a story about your own matrescence, the physical, emotional, hormonal, and social transition that occurs when someone becomes a mother, please leave a comment below. I want this channel to be a place where women can build community about the challenges and joys of their own motherhood metamorphosis. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope it encouraged you and gave you some good food for thought. If you ever have any questions, comments, or you'd like to reach out to me personally, you can email me at brittanyameng@gmail.com.